Then you have just the basic function of search. Search may turn out to be the single most important thing to Twitter's ultimate revenue story when it actually starts focusing on making money as a business. Search may be the thing that ends up making it a profitable company in the long run, because being able to do real-time search advertising is a great business. It's a business, it's 90% of Google's profits come from real-time search advertising, or from search advertising. To be able to do it in real time with Twitter is going to be an enormously important thing for them. So this is the search I have in my book, Ghost Map. And I've got standing Twitter queries for lots of different things, and I get to, as an author, listen in on this conversation that people are having about my books. And what's lovely about that is that you get to hear things in social networks that you don't get from traditional reviews, right? When a newspaper writes a review of your book, it's exciting, sometimes it's depressing, sometimes it's scary, but it's very formal, and book reviewers are different from normal readers. When you get to kind of listen in on what people are saying on a social network, you get, kind of interesting real-time feedback. They're in the middle of the book, they're kind of bored, they're excited, and then one guy here is saying he's not liking the opening. So you get this kind of interesting live commentary on what's going on. Now, people use Twitter with this kind of live search. We're using it right now, obviously. We're searching for that hashtag, and somewhere over there, I think there's a live feed, or we've been switching back and forth between a live feed of comments about this very topic. And all of that is dependent on Twitter's ability to search the live feed of tweets. Did Twitter actually create that search engine for itself? No. Twitter's search engine was created by a company called Sociais, which it had no relationship to, which was a little startup that was working on some project that wasn't really working out. Twitter came along, started to take off. They had some search people on their team, and they decided, wow, we could probably build a search engine for Twitter. That would be really useful. And so they built a little cool little tool that they called Sociais. It was like searchsociais.com or something like that. And it became kind of the default resource for searching Twitter. And so eventually the company Twitter made them an offer, acquired all the engineers, and integrated search into Twitter itself. And so there you have, that is the power of an open platform. Here you have a feature that may be the single most important feature in their long-term profitability, and it was developed by somebody who wasn't even on their payroll, somebody they didn't even know. Now eventually they brought them in because it was so important. But that's the beauty of creating a system where anybody can innovate on top of it. You never know what you're going to find. You're going to find all these interesting things, some of which are going to be boring, some of which are going to be useless, but you're going to find gems in there. And if you can get those gems and promote them, you're going to have a platform that does so much more with far less than you'd ever imagined. The other thing that has made Twitter and Facebook so interesting and so innovative is what's happened with the non-programmers. There's a tremendous amount of stuff that's happened just in the way that people are using the service, right? So you think about, Twitter, both Twitter and Facebook kind of started with this idea of, kind of simple updates that you can share with your friends. Facebook was partially about sharing photos and mapping your social network. Twitter was really focused on these little 140-character status updates. And the joke about Twitter in the early days was, I don't need to know what my friends are having for breakfast, right? People would be like, why do I care about that? That's not all that interesting. I don't really know why I need to know what cereal you're having this morning, right? Because that was the way it was kind of originally designed. You were going to send out these quick little messages about what you were doing. But it turns out that the service has all these uses that the creators didn't intend, that were created not by programmers or software startups, as in the Sociais example, but created by just ordinary people figuring out new things to do with it without having any programming skills at all. And that's something we call end-user innovation. It's an important kind of principle in how innovation happens. People will create interesting things, and then they hand them to their consumers, and the consumers figure out uses that the creators never dreamed of. So in the case of some of the social networks, just the idea of using a hashtag was something that was not built into the Twitter service. This is a version of the live feed we have over here. This was this morning with the hashtag for, I guess I was doing the hashtag of CIRS. we've been looking at the hashtag, I think, for 2010 with CC. But this idea of kind of simultaneously doing this and agreeing on a convention so that every tweet associated with this conference should use that hashtag. That's a convention that was not part of the original kind of Twitter software. It was not something that the creators, pointed to. It was something that users just started doing. And it's created this very interesting thing, whereas right now you all, anybody who's following this on Twitter right now is having this kind of silent back channel conversation where you're able to kind of comment on and expand on and suggest links and make fun of everything that's going on here on stage, right? And that was not at all something that the Twitter guys thought of when they first started the service. Now that can have disastrous effects. There's a wonderful conference that's going on right now, South by Southwest, in Austin, Texas. And 2 years ago, I think it was, right as Twitter was starting to kind of break out, there was an interview between a reporter and Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook. And basically, it turned out to be one of the most catastrophic conference interviews in the history of technology conferences. What happened was basically the reporter was interviewing Zuckerberg and was doing it in a kind of annoying way. She wasn't really asking good questions. The audience was very techy, and so they wanted a lot of tech questions. She seemed to be kind of flirting with him in a way that seemed a little bit odd to people in the room. And basically, a lot of the audience was kind of annoyed by the way the interview was going. Now, in the past, that annoyance would have happened basically would have passed in silence. Every individual person kind of thinking to themselves, gosh, this interview was annoying. Or maybe they would mutter to their friend next to them, boy, this interview was annoying. But it happened that this whole audience was silently communicating on this back channel using a hashtag. And as the interview progressed, a consensus emerged in the audience that this was the worst interview ever in the history of conference interviews. And the audience got more and more enraged and started saying more and more kind of nasty things as the interview progressed. And I'm really hoping this is not going on right now about this speech. And so by the time they went to Q&A, and they said, hey, anybody have any questions? Somebody got up and asked kind of an angry question, and the reporter kind of turned and she said, oh wait, do you guys not like my interviewing style? And the whole room erupted in applause, in angry applause, saying, yes, you're doing a terrible job. And it was awful, it was really embarrassing to watch. And the point, of course, is that she had the least amount of information there in the whole room. Everybody else knew that the crowd was turning against her, but she couldn't see that because it was this kind of silent conversation happening. So it was a fascinating moment in kind of group dynamics and in kind of the whole idea of having this live conversation running with a live event and what that kind of space creates in the way that we talk to each other when we talk in an event like this. All these new things were happening. And it was so far from, I'm having Cheerios for breakfast, right? And this was just a year after Twitter launched. And it didn't take any new software, it didn't take any new developers, it was just this agreement that we should use this convention. I suppose it took the search tool, but besides that, it was basically just that the users coming up with this new pattern. The other thing that people are doing on Facebook and on Twitter a lot is sharing links. Instead of saying, this is what I'm having for breakfast, they're saying, this is what I read today. I'm reading this interesting article. I would say I now read 50% of my diet of things that I read every morning come to me through social networks on Twitter or Facebook. So I have switched from saying to the editorial team at the New York Times, tell me what's important today by choosing these stories on the front door. I have implicitly said, no, you know what, I'm interested in that and I will continue to look at that. But I'm more interested in what the people I'm following, what they're reading today. That's going to be a more interesting, more relevant, if you follow the right people, more eclectic, if you have a kind of a diverse range of opinions that you follow, which is important to do. And so people are passing around these links. This is one view you can do in Twitter, which is kind of recently retweeted things among your social network. And it's a really great source of what people are talking about every morning. Increasingly, that's going to be central to the search functionality as well. So it's not just using the service to talk about what you have for breakfast, it's using the service to talk about what story is the most important thing right now in your extended social network.